Hey guys, welcome to the Girl Take No podcast. I'm your host, Shaunie Sanders, and today I have with me Ashley Quinn. She is a passionate working mom, which we love that. She is author of the Executive Motherhood, The Art of Having It All Without Doing It All. I can't wait to hear about this book. And she is founder of the virtual assistant agency called myVA Rocks. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And my name is Ashley Quinto Powell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ashley Quinto Powell. I apologize about that. I just said your last name. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, so before we jump into like any major questions, give me the story behind the brand. What made you decide to start your virtual assistant company? And then we'll talk about kind of like the story behind the book itself. But give me the story behind what made you decide to start your VA company.
Sure. Well, I had been using a virtual assistant in my consulting practice, and I had recommended to my clients that they hire virtual assistants, and it really helped me. At the time, I was sort of being flung between my home in Madison, Wisconsin. I had a commuter apartment in Chicago, so I was traveling weekly, and very, very focused, but very overextended. And I hired my first VA to read my emails to me as I was driving, and it was the only thing that kept me even remotely on top of communication. And then, I have been talking about keeping working moms in the workforce for as long as they want to be, and how corporations need to better support the pipeline of executive women and the women on their teams, especially through their childbearing years, because that can be so tough. And the messaging that we send moms is awful about, how to, we don't really give them messaging about how to stay in the workforce. We give them plenty of messaging about how to go home. And I think there's all sorts of stuff that happens when you're trying to make the decision, how involved do I want to be at work, that steers you in what potentially is the wrong direction. And then I know too, from speaking about that topic, that there are young women who are looking to see how moms are handling it, to see if they can even fit a child in their lifestyle. And mostly, actually, that answer is probably not. So I think I've been sensitive to that for a really long time. And then, in the pandemic, I had just a terrible time myself. I was trying to keep my business alive, trying to feed children all the snacks. And I knew, as a lot of people did actually, that we were going to lose a lot of women from the workforce. I
failed at third grade
and we lost
during that time.
So, goodness. It was awful. I mean, it was awful. And, as people started saying like, well, now we know that teachers are Nope. I always knew that teachers were amazing. I did not need to learn that lesson. I think we should pay them $1 billion. However, so that does not mean absolutely, that was not a lesson I needed to learn. And I could just see that we were going to lose a lot of women from the workforce. And I thought, if it were me, my brain would atrophy at home. And, I get so much from being vital at work, and wanted to create an opportunity, maybe a soft landing for people who needed to leave the traditional workforce for whatever reason. And we certainly have quite a lot of caregivers who are on our staff, but people don't like the traditional workforce for any number of reasons.
I could name a lot of them.
Yep. And so I've been able to scoop up really amazing folks as virtual assistants. But it fits my values of keeping people in the workforce if they want to be there. And also, from the flip side, we deserve help. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, and Midwestern entrepreneurs are very good at a lot of things. Going it alone is one of those things. And, doing everything without complaint. We don't ask for help very well. And, but I do think we deserve that. We deserve some of that lift, and we deserve not to be working at 10 p.m. And we deserve to have these systems that allow our businesses to grow without it necessarily being all on us. And so it all it all collided for me in the virtual assistant business, and the rest is history.
You touched on so many important things. One, you're so right. The current workforce do not find reasons for us to stay as working moms. It does give us a lot of reasons to leave. They really don't support us. And it's so funny to me because a lot of the leaders who are husbands and have children, sometimes say they understand, but when you do have that moment where, oh my God, my child's school call and I have to leave. I can't attend this meeting, or I can't present this particular presentation, which is a lot in my case, because I have to go, and pick up my kid that's sick from school. And a lot of times they really didn't understand it, and they wanted you to plan it out. And you're like, I can't plan when my kids are going to be sick. I can't tell you that. So it wasn't really very supportive. It really isn't, but it does give you a lot of reason to think about your lifestyle, which the pandemic did for me as well. And it really had me choose positions that were way more flexible, because I could not be so confined to a desk. I had to have flexibility where I'm able to pick up and go when I need to, because simple fact is I have kids and sometimes things happen. And Absolutely. I love that. And I do think you touched on another thing that was important, is that as entrepreneurs, we also think that we have to do everything ourselves. We really do. Because even with me and my podcast, I was doing it all myself to the point where I was like, I'm so overwhelmed. I have to get help. Where I went out, it's so fun. I just went out and got myself a VA assistant because I couldn't do it anymore. It really got to that point, actually, where I could not. Yeah. I physically couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I got to get somebody else to handle the outreach of just guests, that's coming in, people that want to come on the show, the managing of social media. It's so important to know that you don't have to do it all. You can get help.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a great book that's sort of on everybody's hot list right now, which is Who, Not How. And one of the things that they say really early on in that book is, imagine what you could accomplish if you didn't have to do it all yourself. Yes. And I think that is so magical. It's the idea that we all have as many hours in the day as Beyonce. Yeah. It's like, well, that should make you want to hit someone. Exactly. It's like, no, we are not actually Beyonce in hiding.
We're not.
Right? We don't. We're not. It's just we're not. So it's a little easier to stomach than you have as many hours in the day as Beyonce, but it's the same, it's the same thing. If we can nail delegation, we can really grow what we have purview over. And the fact of the matter is, there's so much stuff that actually does not need our brains or our muscle. And the stuff that really does need our brain is the big thinking strategy stuff. And that takes time. And I think also we don't give ourselves enough time for that. We're so focused on task-based to-do lists. And we think of our own productivity as being very much judged by what is on and what comes off your to-do list. But actually those are not the things that move your business forward. And in my case, email does not move my business forward particularly. I don't get to make $1 million if I'm at inbox 0. It's just not how it works. Your reward for being really great at email is you get more email. And but the stuff that really does propel us forward, the strategy and networking, all the stuff that really has to be uniquely us, we need to have time to do without feeling like the actual weight of the world is on our shoulders.
That is true. Do you think that as entrepreneurs, now that we're in such a digital space, do we take networking for granted now? Do we feel like we don't have to necessarily like the physical piece of it, like actually go to an event, meet people, shake hands, exchange, build partnerships that way, because everything is so digital now. And I feel like everything is a lead magnet, right? Where it's like, there's no one-on-one. I rarely see people go to networking events these days. I rarely see people even do networking events anymore, or they do more virtual things. So do you think we're kind of like, we're moving more away from that, or we don't believe it's that important anymore?
Well, I think everybody got really comfy in their sweatpants. And it is hard to convince yourself. I mean, I used to joke a year ago that my new favorite magic act was saying I was going to go to something and then at the last minute deciding not to. Like, that was my MO. And because it is super comfortable to be at home. And, you know, of course, I'm one of those people who, when I get out there, I'm delighted. I feel like I'm running into old friends and it really is fun. But, you know, I think when I think about networking, I think a lot about the distinction between national networking and local networking. And depending on what your business needs, your business may not need you to be at like a BNI meeting, for instance. I actually cannot handle BNI. I think it's the worst. But I have lots of, like, a proud member of Rotary. And I think there are probably some Rotary clubs. People are like, oh no. I happen to be part of a really good one, so I don't mean to bash all of the BNIs. But you know, when we're networking nationally, that can absolutely be done on Zoom. You don't have to leave the house. You don't even have to leave the state. Yep. And that has certainly made the world much smaller in a really delightful.
Yeah, it has. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, like throughout your life? Did you know, like, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur one day. I'm going to own my own business and this is my road I'm going to take. Did you always see yourself as one, or did you kind of fall into entrepreneurship?
Oh, you know, I was one of those kids who was like selling candy out of my Trapper Keeper.
Trapper Keepers.
And I'm pretty like, it, you know, it's one of those things that you can either like take that and become an entrepreneur or like a drug runner. You know, it can go literally one of two ways. And I had little businesses as a kid. I had a tremendously successful dog walking business when I was in like middle school. Yep. And I loved working and I loved making money. And I think the making money was a really important part of how I viewed myself as a young adult. But then when I was 24, I sold my apartment and cashed in my 401k and started my first business, which was an online jewelry retailer. And it was right before people were really buying fashion online.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I absolutely lost my shirt, like 100% lost literally everything. And I was so scarred from that experience. Now it's kind of funny, but it was 10 years before it was funny.
Yeah, of course.
And so, so after that, actually, I told myself, like, no, I'll have a side hustle or something, but I'm not going to be risky. And most importantly, someone else is going to have to be responsible for my paycheck landing in my bank account at like midnight on Friday. And I really felt like that was so comforting. But as it turns out, people mess that up too. You know, you can get laid off. You can have, you know, there can be I've had so many weird stuff happen that, you know, eventually, like, if it's going to get messed up, at least I can be the one who can mess it up. So I have an equal chance of getting it right. And when I left corporate this last time, I worked with my husband, who gave me a runway, and he said, well, here's our savings. Here's what you can essentially, like, here's your burn rate. You need to add to it. And when it gets to zero, you have to go get a job. So I just tried to make sure that there was money there. So I didn't have to go get a job. And luckily things have mostly turned out well.
Well, I'm glad it did. Well, that's really good that you had that support system. When did you know it was time to take that lead? Was it that you felt like, hey, I just don't want to do this corporate thing anymore? Or was it a defining moment for you, or a piece of advice or something that sparked in you and said it's time for me to go ahead and take that leap and do this full time?
Oh, I was so inspired by entrepreneurship and business owners that I had to keep a notebook with me to keep all of the business ideas that I had in one place. And I think being between Madison and Chicago, you know, I could see like what Madison needed and what Chicago was innovating. And so that was a really neat space. I ended up leaving corporate actually to join a startup that was a wedding registry for art. And that was essentially like why I left corporate. And I started my revenue consultancy, sort of like pay the bills while I got things going with the wedding company. But I actually hated being involved in the wedding business. You know, it's like
Yeah.
but it was just not my cup of tea. And I ended up loving the consulting that I was doing. And I experimented with all sorts of things. I experimented with having networking groups, and I experimented with having a product company. And it gave me a nice opportunity to admire your background, which is stunning, by the way.
Thank you. My husband built this for me, so I needed something.
What a good husband.
I know, right? He's real handy. I wanted to make sure I married somebody that was handy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I am really taken by my husband every time he switches out the filter on our refrigerator water. I think that it's the most magical thing that we have refrigerator water. Who knows how to do that? No
I
one.
had to Google it. I had to Google it, and my husband's like, "I'll take care of it." I was like, "Because nobody knows how to do that. It'll just stay off forever."
No. Right. I thought it was supposed to not work after the first year. Who knew?
It's back on. Okay, so you didn't do the wedding, didn't like the wedding business, but you really fell in love with the consulting piece of your business, and that's where you decided to do that full time. Okay.
Yeah, and I consulted mostly software development firms on their revenue, and I loved that. I loved my clients, and then of course out of that came myVA Rocks, and I made, after about a year of doing both, it was just very obvious that that the virtual assistant company deserved my full attention, and had there was some opportunity cost in me keeping consulting, and I have loved seeing it grow and building the team, and it's just been really an incredible experience.
That is so awesome. Do you get a lot of entrepreneurs who are afraid to let go of responsibilities, that almost like do the work for the VA assistant? Because I was doing that in the beginning. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to make everything for you, and I'm going to give it all to you. And I'm writing, you just schedule it. And she was kind of like, I can do all of that, So do you run into that? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's very, very common. I think that, there are some other things that we see, like, there's fear that comes with perfectionism, where people are so afraid to give anything up because it may not be perfect, that they end up being saddled with this huge workload. And, things are not going to be perfect, especially right off the bat. But, slightly imperfect is done. And that's often better than perfect, right? And then we also see, like, well, it's so much easier. It's easier to do it myself, just this one last time. Well, okay, but it's not. We know it's not. It's okay. It's a trap. And actually, we've one of the things that has been really fascinating to me has been the way that people start working with a VA, because to your point, it is really difficult. And sometimes your business has existed in your head for years, and now letting somebody else in just feels like, oh, I don't know. Do I have to explain to you where this came from? Because we've been doing it this way, or, it's a widget on my phone, and that's why we do it that way. Whatever the case. And now we have, we're trying out having essentially implementation managers who can help get people acclimated to using a VA, who can, the onboarding specialists can help make strategic suggestions, like, hey, you need a project management software here, or hey, let's get this process down and into an SOP, so that people can work more effectively with a virtual assistant. Because it's, if you've been in your business alone for a long time, it's really difficult to go from zero to effectively working with a VA who takes a lot of it off your plate. And, it's certainly not magic, but once you have really established good communication and a good rhythm with a virtual assistant, you feel like a wizard. Like, look at all this stuff I can accomplish.
Oh, yeah. Like, the girl that works with me, she's just like on top of it. And I had a lot of things already in place, a lot of tools and stuff like that I use to help with certain things. But like you said, being able to kind of like give that all to someone was hard to do, because I'm so used to just kind of like going through it and pushing it out. But since I've been doing it, it has allowed me to have more time to focus on the actual show itself, the guest, the questions that I need to ask and stuff like that. So it really has allowed me a lot of time, and I'm really glad that I finally did it. I really am.
Good for you.
It was just a big part of it. So what has the journey of starting this new business been like for you? Because was it smooth sailing all the way? Or did you have like some ebbs and flows? I know I have to ask that question, but most of them I was like, no. I struggled. Oh my God. So what was the journey like for you?
Well, we've come up against some really interesting challenges, which is the kindest way to say it. Looking at the bright side, it really has given us an opportunity to examine our hiring practices and how we identify who our client is and which ones we say no to, and how we build the culture. It's been really, really good. I was reminded recently that it's supposed to be hard. So when it's hard, we knew it was going to be difficult, and I think we sort of romanticize how when we have gone through challenges in the past and made it through, we often look back like, oh wow, that was tough, but so the best time. And it's hard to see that in the moment when you are going through it. It's a journey. It's always a journey.
It has its highs and lows. How did you manage your time with being a wife, being a mom, and trying to balance everything? Because when you become an entrepreneur, it's like almost like you work more than you would in a normal 9 to 5. So how did you balance everything?
Well, I do have wonderful support from my husband, who is absolutely fantastic. He was a stay-at-home dad for several years.
That's awesome.
So he's really in a good rhythm with our kids. He's a wonderful father. So that was probably pretty important to the overall health of all the companies. I also delegate things that most people, I guess also it's helpful that I own a virtual assistant agency, but I was delegating stuff way before I owned the agency. And I really dislike doing things I don't have to do. And so like the example I always give is I'm not sure how, but I was roped into coaching basketball for my kids. And it's Pee-wee basketball. Like I think they were like 6 and 8 when I started. So, nobody's getting ready for the NBA. We're at the Y. And I remember thinking like, oh, sure, I'll just check the box that says I'd be happy to help coach. And then they made me the head coach of both teams, which is ludicrous because I barely know how to play basketball. And my husband was like, what are you doing? I've never seen you play basketball. We don't own a basketball. You've never expressed an interest in playing basketball. Do you know how to play?
Ashley, you are too funny.
I say yes. So what I did is actually I worked with my virtual assistant at the time, and I said, okay, we're coaching basketball. I don't really know how to play. And I had never been in a Pee-wee practice of any kind. I didn't play sports as a kid. I was in drama and singing musical theater, so very opposite basketball. And I had the VA send me YouTube clips of Pee-wee practices, so I would know even what is supposed to happen in the practice. And then the VA handled all of the snack mom organization and sent out the email that said, okay, our next game is on Saturday. Don't forget to wear your shirt. And here's who the snack mom is. And that stuff, that's the kind of stuff that could never make its way onto my priority list because everything else is frankly on fire, right? The stuff that we don't have time for, like that gets deprioritized, is not because it's not important. It's because we are putting out fires. And a friend of mine puts it in a really delightful way, which is, listen, there is currently a bonfire, a house fire, and a forest fire. I'll get to the bonfire, but we're just going to take care of the house fire first. And to be clear, everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. So if it's not on fire, I just don't even have the capacity to look at it. So, and I think that's such a good framing.
Yeah, it is.
Is that how it feels, right? Like we're just putting out all the fires all the time.
All the time.
All
it's
the fires.
Always something.
And Always. I mean, there's always
Always.
something. And I have never had the luxury of having so much time that I can be like a very organized person, for instance. So that's okay. We just give that to somebody else. And I'm not going to say that I was the world's most successful basketball coach, but I coached for several years, both teams. And I had a blast doing it. And it, and more importantly, the stuff that I delegated really freed me up to do what I wanted to do in basketball, which was be the world's most enthusiastic coach and give little kids high fives. It's like, oh my gosh, good job. You made a basket. I think that's some amount of points. Good job, you know.
He said, I think that's some amount of points. That is too funny. That is so cool that you actually did that, because I don't think I would have been able to do it. I'm like, I don't know anything about basketball. How am I going to coach a team? Oh my God, that's so cool that you even did it.
It was not one of my finer moments, to be honest. And the first time I walked into that gym desperately clutching a clipboard, I did not know how well it was going to go or not go. But, you know,
as I said, it worked out. In the end, it all worked out. It worked out. So what inspired you to write the book? Because you already got a lot of things going on. And I know when it comes to a book, it takes time, you know. Well, for some people can write a book in 7 days. I've seen some things floating around online. But what inspired you to write the book?
Well, I had been thinking about it for a long time. I gave a TEDx on a similar subject and wanted to expand on that idea. And I really like writing. So it was sort of a fun, creative pursuit for me. And you know, it was sort of a bucket list item, and I thought I was going to do it in 2020, and then of course that was not the best year ever. And in 2021, I finally was like, all right. And I partner sometimes with American Family Insurance, and they bought the first 100 copies of a book that I had not written one word of. And I sort of said, like, well, okay, I will get this to you by the end of the year. So I had a built-in deadline, and you know, it was something that I was excited to make time for, and actually the process was not as it wasn't as exhausting as I thought it would be. It was really kind of fun.
That's good. Did you discover anything new about yourself while writing this book?
Ooh. Yeah, I'm positive that I did. You know, especially as we're thinking through, like, making sure that people in general are treated equitably and cared for in ways that we haven't traditionally cared for people. You know, all this stuff sort of it deserves a chance to ruminate in your head. And you know, we have to rethink like all of our unconscious bias, for instance. Really examine that, and we have to think through, like, why is it different from dads than it is for moms, and how do we dismantle it? And I think that stuff is so fascinating and so important. And that's really what came out of the book for me.
Oh, so in the end, do you believe that? Because I've asked other working moms this question, you know, like, how do you balance it all? Can we do it all? Like, I'm gonna say this: we can do it all. We're exhausted, right? We're exhausted at doing it all. But what did you discover at the end of it? Did you believe that, hey, as moms, as working moms, we can have it all?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a big part of it is how we ask for help. And certainly it's not necessarily a virtual assistant, because I know that seems out of reach for most people. But it is also like making sure that we have partnership in who we're married to and who we're raising kids with. And, you know, like, my husband is really wonderful and he is an incredible support, but also I'm very specific about what I need and how things are working. And I think a lot about how, like, we shouldn't be asking for help, right? Because that's not really, when we ask for help from our partners, it drives home the assumption that we were supposed to do it all ourselves. And so when you ask for help, you're asking for somebody to take something off of your plate. And I think it's more important to decide, like, it's not on my plate in the first place. Why don't you figure out that the kitchen needs to be cleaned? And I don't want to tell you about that. I need to look at a dirty kitchen and say, okay, here I go. That's what I need from a partnership. And so I think as wonderful as he's really, truly the best, but also I'm very clear about like, this isn't working so well for me, or I'm starting to feel resentment here, and we need to do something a little bit different.
Yeah. What would you say to the single mom, the single parent that's, trying to work and parent and maybe start a business? What would you say to them when it comes to balancing?
Well, it's so important also to have your village ready to go. Yep. I think it's important for single moms to be able to voice what they need. And so often there are people who have said like, oh, I'm happy to help, just let me know. And I think that's difficult to take somebody up on. It's like, oh, just let me know when you want to come over to my house for dinner. Like, you're not ever going to say like, how's Tuesday to come over to your house for dinner? You'd literally never say that, right? Like that's the equivalent of like, don't call us, we'll call you. But I think of my girlfriends, like I really want to help them. And that's a way to deepen our relationship too. And so when you sort of keep all of that stuff in your, like on your list, and you don't allow anybody in enough, that also means that your friendships are shallow. And there are people around who absolutely want to be there. And, I wish that I could have a conversation with everyone who is surrounding a single mom and say like, but hey, you have to offer 3 suggestions. Do you want me to come over and, do you want me to come over and vacuum? Do you want me to make you dinner? Do you want me to leave dinner at your doorstep? Pick one. But realistically, that is not how most people offer help. But I think it is also important to recognize that that is a way to let someone in to your life and your heart, and a way to deepen friendships. And the thing that has made such a big difference to me is the friendships that I've cultivated. Sometimes, and I'm not great about keeping in touch. I am like managing a house on fire. So not everybody can handle that, but it's okay.
I think you said that's important. And I think that's important even as married couples to have a village, have a community of support. You know what I mean? Because I know with me and my husband, we have family and friends and stuff like that, just to support us when we just need to have time together. Because we still have to cultivate that relationship as well. And it's important as a single parent, because I have friends who are single parents, that we support, to have that support system around them to allow them to still feel like they can do the things that they do, that they love, and to take some things off their plate, because it can be overwhelming for them at times when they're, especially since because they're by themselves and they're trying to do it all. I even think about my mom being a single parent, and why my mom has 13 children. I don't know how she did it, but we all made it.
That's amazing.
And it's like and I look at her and she just never seemed like she suffered through anything. And as I got older and I talked to her about these conversations and just watching her growing up, and she said, I never showed you guys when I went through stuff. I never showed you guys when I was upset and when I was hurt, or when I had to make sure that you guys had it versus me. Like, I'm like, Mom, I've never seen you not have anything. And she's like, you never see me go to work with holes in my shoes, or holes in my clothes, or not having the stuff that I want because I have to take care of you guys. And so I was just so shocked to hear that from her. But it just goes to show you the sacrifices parents make for their kids, for their children. And it's just, and being able to have that support is huge, because my mom didn't have a support around her. It was just, hey, you older kids, y'all take care of the young ones kind of thing, So I was grateful for that. But it's important to have that support and have good friends around. That's a true statement. Yeah, that is true. So is there any other books on the horizon? Do you think you got some more books coming, or you think this is probably just like a one and done kind of thing?
I am working on my next book on delegation. And, how to be better about that, because as it turns out, nobody pulls you aside, even if you go get an MBA, which I do not have. But even if you get an MBA, it turns out nobody pulls you aside and says like, here's how you take something off of your list and put it on someone else's. It's just not. It it should be maybe the first class you take, but it's not. And as it turns out, we all struggle with it.
That's so true. I like that, because we don't know how to delegate other things to people. You know, when you think about as an entrepreneur, you think about, okay, I got to do, like I said, I got to do everything myself. I got to get this business started. I got to find this. I got to do this. I got to do that. We do not think about hiring people on. But every entrepreneur that I talked to said, in order to grow, you have to hire people. You can't do everything yourself. You have to be willing to relinquish certain things to other people. And I always ask, and I'm actually this question too, why do you think it's so hard for us to do that? Why is it so hard for us to give responsibilities to other people and let them do it? And then, like you said, we focus on the big strategy piece of it.
Well, I think it just feels bad to give something up. It feels really risky, and until you're really in good habits, it doesn't happen magically. One of the things that we tell clients is, listen, you have to meet with your VA once a week. You have to have a project management system so that you can keep track of what has been delegated and what now, like when the VA says, oh, but I need this one piece from you first before I can complete it. There's all sorts of little things like that just make it really difficult. And I think if it were a magic wand, we would have no problem, but it's not. And so, I joke that our biggest competitor is it's easier to do it myself. And it's a joke, but it's not really a joke. It's a big competitor of ours. And for any number of reasons, but it is really healthy, and it is really healthy. Also, I think we've been taught for so long to be self-reliant and how important it is. We have to do our own work. We can't, of course we can't steal from others, but that gets sort of convoluted, I think. And it ends up that we think that managing a series of projects is not actually doing any work.
Yeah, that's true. We grow up with that mindset of like, you have to work hard, you have to do it yourself. Nobody's going to give it to you. You have to go out there and do it, and you're not going to share with nobody. That's kind of the idea that we all kind of have, where you like delegation is not something we're taught. We don't really know about it. When do you think it's time to say, hey, it's time to bring on a VA, or it's time to bring on somebody to help you? When do you think it's time, when it's the right time that you've gotten there? When do you tell entrepreneurs like, hey, you're there, you need to do this now?
That's a good question. I think a lot about people who have brought in VAs too early. There's too much pressure. You really have to have, first of all, your business has to be profitable. It's now one of the screening questions that we ask. We want our clients to have been profitable for the last couple of years, because no one in your business can make you profitable. They can help you be more profitable, but you sort of have to figure out what makes sense for your business first. And if you have systems, especially that can be given to someone else, so if you can say, here's how I do business development, and here's how you would do that for me, that is a really healthy place to start bringing in a virtual assistant. But I think most people, as you're growing, it can feel like, well, I'm ready for my first employee, but I'm absolutely not ready for my first employee. And that's kind of the right place to bring in any contingent help. And I think uniquely to our clients, we mostly have clients who can sense that there is a bigger market available to them. They just can't capture it yet, because they don't have enough bodies or enough hands, and they just need to be able to capture more market, and that's a fun place to come in. We really like that.
Yeah, that's really good. This has been a good conversation. I'm glad we had this time to talk.
Chantel, you seem surprised. What? I had no idea.
It was just fun. Like, your personality is just super fun and easy to talk to,
Thanks, right back at you.
Thank you. This has been really good. Let me ask you this. What are some tips or strategies you can give an entrepreneur in terms of like just getting into their business, starting their business, what mindset do you think an entrepreneur have to have when they're ready to kind of take that leap and do it full time?
Well, I think focusing on ways to collaborate with other people is a really good start. And actually, I'm so excited about more women being entrepreneurs, because there's a way that we manage that's more empathetic.
Yes.
We tend to be, we have an abundance mindset. We're not out to kill the competition. And so collaborating with other women, I think, is probably like key to anyone's success as an entrepreneur. And then I think, we know about being a female entrepreneur that only 4% make it to 7 figures in revenue a year, which means that should be everyone's goal. It should be everyone's goal to have a 7-figure business right out of the gate, because we need to really push that to, at least 5%, 10%. 4% is really egregious. And focus on making the company that you wished you could have worked for, because we have enough soulless corporate companies, and we need the heart and the thoughtfulness that comes with entrepreneurs who can build a business that they're really, really proud to work with.
I think it's good now that we're coming to a place where we're looking at it more positively to lead in our femininity. You know what I mean? Because before, corporate America is so masculine. You know what I mean? To be in corporate America, you have to have that masculine energy just like everybody else do. But I think it's something now where things are shifting, and even as entrepreneurs, you're able to lead in that femininity, and it's just so awesome to see. Like you said, we can be caring, we can be thoughtful. We don't have to be mean and and rude to people in order to get things done. We don't have to lead from a fear perspective. You know what I mean? In order to get things done. I like that.
Yeah, and we certainly had to. I don't want to bash the women who came before me, because I know that was the only way. There was one pink chair, and you had to fight somebody for it, and you had to make sure that nobody thought you were weak, and that you would always be strong. But we're just luckily we're in a different place right now, and I have so much faith in Gen Z that they will continue changing things, and there's some real weird stuff that goes on in corporate America, and I'm really looking forward to changing that.
Exactly. Well, listen, I thank you so much for coming on the show. Before we end the show, I ask every guest this: what was some of the best advice you received from another woman?
It's a great question. When I was thinking about going out on my own, I called 2 women and I said, listen, you seem to, on social media, make this seem like it is really great. And I need you to be honest with me. Like, is it a mess behind the scenes, or is it really as great as you make it seem? And both women said, it's pretty great. Just go for it, and it'll take care of itself. And it has certainly been a rocky journey, as it always is. But the time that I get to spend with my children, and the flexibility that I have to build the life that I want to lead, and when we were in corporate America, we kept being reminded, right, that like you can be replaced right now. You can be replaced. There's nothing special about you. And that is still true when you have your own business, but it means that no single person can wreck it. It's real. If you have a business that's chugging along, it tends to have sort of an energy of its own, and tapping into that is really beneficial. So I think the go for it advice from those 2 women absolutely changed my life.
Yeah, I like that. You just go for it, and I think I like what you said in terms of like, we have to know that it's going to be hard no matter what. That's just the way it is. It's hard work. If you go out on your own, it's going to be hard. It's hard work, but the reward is so much greater than when you have to work for someone else, and just go for it. I love that. I thank you so much for coming on the show. This was such a great conversation. I know my audience is going to learn a lot from this conversation and be inspired by everything you said and just your personality all around.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored. It's a really fun to be your guest too.
Yes. And I look forward to you coming back when you release a new book, of course. And we're going to talk about that because we all got to learn how to delegate better. We all need it. All right, guys. I am Shaunie Sanders. This is the Girl Take No Podcast, and we will talk to you next time.